If you want to participate, contact me at ordinarywomenpodcast@gmail.com. I'm sure you have great projects to brag about. You can also follow me and message me on Instagram at ordinarywomenpodcast, on Twitter at ordinarywomenpc, or on Facebook on the page Ordinary Women.
Hello, welcome to Ordinary Women. Hi Chiara, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi Lucy, anytime.
How are you doing today?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Can you start by giving a quick presentation of yourself?
Of course, so I'm Chiara, I'm 21, I live in London, I work with Lucy, I work in tech sales, and that's me.
Do you have anything unusual that you can say about you?
I think something unusual is I can stay scarily calm in like any situation. No matter what happens, I will be so calm. You won't know that I'm stressed or what's going on, and like I will be calm and I will keep you calm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's super useful. That's so useful.
Right?
I wish I had that.
But I then always need other people to be calm, you know, like let's all calm down.
Yeah, and so useful. I wish I was like that. Sometimes I have to answer people and
yeah. I mean, there's always a difference of what's going on inside than outside, you know?
Obviously.
On the outside, I'm calm. Inside, that's a whole nother world.
Since here we talk about being a woman, was there a time you realised that you are a woman?
That's a really funny question because I don't really think of myself as a woman, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I still think of myself as a girl.
Okay.
So I think when I talk about stuff, I would rather say girl than woman.
Okay.
Maybe I'm still young in my head, you know, who knows?
Yeah.
I don't think there was any one situation that made me go, ooh, this is, you know, I'm a girl, I'm a woman or whatever. I'd say it's more like when you grow up and then you start realising all that stuff that you have these universal experiences of there's different expectations for me, you know, like... Yeah. You need to be more adult about this, or you need to do this or that. So yeah, I think it's more of you realise there's a difference in who you are to who other people are, or like how the boys were treated and how you were treated. So I think it's more that than, oh, I had this moment and I realised I'm a woman.
Yeah, more of a gradual thing.
Exactly.
What you're saying also about being a girl and a woman is very interesting. So I study languages, so obviously, you know, I like to think and read about how the words we use affect us. And yeah, for a long time I was like you, until quite recently actually. I would tend to use the word girl about my friends, about myself, about my dates, about whoever. And now I'm forcing myself to say women because we are more than 18. We are women. And at the same time, it still feels kind of weird sometimes. But yeah, it's very interesting, the choice of words.
I mean, I do say I'm a strong, independent woman, but more on a jokey side.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I just use girl a lot more than woman.
Yeah, we're allowed to do that, to be honest. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
And did you grow up with any feminine role model?
When I was young, I used to look up to like celebrities and like famous women a lot, and I always wanted to be like them. I wanted to look like them and speak and, you know, have their talents or whatever and just be like them, especially like, you know, all those Disney stars that you grew up with. I would look towards them quite a bit, I'd say. In terms of personal role models, I pretty much wanted to be like... I've got an older sister, she's 10 years older. I wanted to be like her.
As all younger sister.
Exactly. And also I'm really, really close to my cousin, and she's about 5 years older. And I very much wanted to be like her. And in my mind, I wasn't younger than her, you know, I was her age. I pretty much think the two of them would be somebody I would look up to and see as a role model. I kind of do to this day, you know, but...
Yeah. I was about to ask today, who would be your feminine role model?
I think it wouldn't just be a limited amount of people. I think it's very much spread out, because the older you get, the more you realise nobody really has a grip on anything.
Yeah.
So I think there's maybe like one character trait or one thing that you look towards them to, but not everything, because they're not going to be perfect and they're not going to, you know, do anything right. So I'd say it's still the two of them, but then there's also maybe, you know, your boss at work, where you're like, oh, I really like how confident confident they are or how they got there. So that's something you look towards too. But I think what has gotten definitely way less is how you look towards people of interest, like celebrities, anything like that.
Yeah.
They're there, they're nice, but I don't really look up towards them, apart from Meghan Markle. She's my only exception.
She should be. Like...
I just think she's fucking great, and she's my one, like, famous role model.
Yeah.
That's it.
You were saying that when you were younger, you were looking a lot up to celebrities and not anymore. Was that also a gradual thing, or did you wake up one day and be like, oh, I'm not looking up towards celebrities anymore? Or like, what was the process?
That's a good question. I haven't really looked into it and looked into my feelings about that, but I think you grow up, they grow up. And I'm very much still into celebrity culture, and I know what everyone is doing because I'm into that. I love gossip and all of that, but I don't feel like I need to look up to them or be like them because, you know, they're their own people, they're their own life. They've got a very different life to us. But yeah, I think it's potentially something that gradually happened when you get older.
Makes sense. Cool. And do you think the lack of representation of women in society had an impact on you?
I guess so. The earliest where I know where it started is, for example, in school we read books, right?
Yeah.
There's all these mandatory books that you read with a class, and the main characters would be boys.
Yep.
So everything I read at home was the complete opposite. I fucking love chick lit, you know, that's my thing.
Yes.
I won't read anything else. There's the occasional thriller or the occasional non-fiction, but that is something where I really kind of needed it. As much as when you're younger, it doesn't really... I say it doesn't matter, but actually it does matter. But yeah, it was always like the boys, and there's only so much you can connect with that, I think.
Yeah, completely.
So yeah, I think the first time you really notice it was in school.
And do you think it had any impact on who you are today?
I don't think it did.
Okay.
I mean, I still think that I'm really lucky because I'd say like who I am and what I look like is still very much represented when there's women represented.
Yeah, 100%.
So I still think there's some kind of representation, still not enough, but I'm kind of privileged in that way.
Yeah. Jumping back on the role models you have, what have they taught you?
I think one thing that I've got from my cousin, for example, would be go for what you want. And that's something that I hear from other people when they talk about me. I like to listen to how people describe me. And there's certain buzzwords and there's certain things that come up quite a lot. And I apparently also go for what I want. So I think I got that kind of from her and looking, you know, how she does life and all of that. So I would say that.
Cool. And do you know how people describe you now?
I still think it's been pretty much the same for a very long time, that I go for what I want, I know what I want. I always have a plan ready, like I've got a next step planned already. That's something that I hear quite a bit, and that I'm independent.
Yeah.
Very independent and very grown up. Well, obviously, you know, the typical buzzwords, fun.
You are fun.
I think it's quite similar to what everyone says, really. Some people say sunshine. I think it depends who you're speaking to.
I mean, if you're talking with someone you hate, they're probably not going to say that, but also, is that a bad thing?
No, I think there's two polar opposites. So there's the people that kind of know me as the ice queen, and then there's people that say, oh, you're the sunshine, which they're not necessarily in the same category, but I feel like they're also polar opposites. Mm-hmm. So yeah, buzzwords again. And kind. I get kind a lot. It's always so weird to talk about oneself so positively, if that makes sense.
Well, again, being women, we're not very taught or encouraged to do that, I feel.
I know.
Which is so bad because we're so amazing.
No, it's true. Absolutely. And you kind of have to get yourself into the mindset of what would a man do?
Yeah.
Because they have no issue talking about themselves greatly or in a positive light or whatever. Whereas for me, it always feels so weird. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, completely.
If you ask me, tell me something good about yourself, I'd be like, oh God. And if you're like, can you tell me something bad about yourself? Here's the fucking list.
There's so many like this. It's bad. It reminds me what you were saying about how men have more facility to do that. You know this, and I've always seen it as a gif of Jane Fonda saying, "Do it with the confidence of a mediocre white man."
Yes.
Like yes, any moment of your life. Just think you're a white man. You'll think you do everything perfectly.
No, but it's really interesting because so I'm at university, right? So last term I had a leadership and team building module where we were looking at leadership, and we were also looking into the difference of women and men as leaders and like how people describe themselves in a team. And there are so many differences, and it's so crazy, and it reflects, you know, what we just talked about. And yeah, I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, I've seen a video like this as well. I think it was, you had short extracts of once it was a man and once a woman behaving about the same in a situation very similar. And it was showing different things. But the one that struck me was about anger. So they would get angry. It was in a work situation. The man would get angry and people would think, oh, he probably had a reason to be angry.
Yeah.
That was seen as a positive thing. Whereas when it was the woman who did that, it was almost, you know, the, oh, was she on her period comment.
You don't get that space to be angry.
No, you're not allowed.
Yeah.
Whereas if they're being quite shitty, just don't ask me if I'm on my periods just because you don't want to hear out about what you're doing bad. It was great talking about other people. I want to know more about you.
Okay.
So what's a project that makes you feel very proud of yourself?
So I recently moved. About 2 months ago. I moved into my own flat as a 1-bedroom in London. How crazy is that? I didn't think it would happen that soon.
Why?
I always wanted to move into my own flat. I mean, in London, it's very common to just live with flatmates, right?
It's so expensive.
Exactly. So I didn't think it would be on the cards for me, but everything worked out perfectly, and then I moved.
Nice.
And just the whole thing around it, I mean, it's a stressful experience. So yeah, I think just the moving and getting my flat to a place where I'm super happy and like that's my sanctuary, that's my home.
Yeah.
That's my current ongoing project that I'm very proud and passionate about because, you know, I did everything myself. I didn't have anyone helping me.
Yeah.
And I know probably it would be my easiest move because it was just from one side of town. So I used to live in East London to North West London, which is the other side of town. And I've had crazier moves. Moved from Munich to London, moved from home, which is in Cologne, to Munich, which also is quite a long distance. But this has been like the shortest move, but it's been the one I've been most proud of because it was just me on my own, no help, nothing. And now I get to have my own place and decorated and just make it my home.
That's so nice. How did you start? How did you first have the idea or the willingness to move?
I love the area I was in. I love East London. And I lived there for about 2 years. I only had one flatmate. She was also my landlady. And we did get along really well. But it came to a point where I just didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to have my own space. I haven't had my own space for a very long time. Before I lived in London, I lived in Munich, I lived in dorms.
Okay.
I had to share everything with 13 girls. It's a lot.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I've never done that. I don't
did that for 3 years.
Wow.
So it was just time to have my own space. And one of my hobbies is to look at the housing market and everything. So I kind of know what a lot of properties cost in London because I just like looking at them. And so I'm very much into just looking at houses, and at some point, you know, you also look at flats. You know you're never going to buy them. I just looked at flats all the time, and I wanted to be closer to work as well. So work is in North West London, and then I didn't want to, you know, travel the whole hour. And something that I learned with lockdown is that, yes, it's absolutely amazing to live in a place and an area that you like. But you might also want to be closer to central London. And with public transport, it was quite easy to go into central London. But if you want to walk somewhere that makes you feel like London, you need to live closer to somewhere. So now, what happens now is in my new place, when I walk for an hour, I'm in Notting Hill. I'm in Hampstead Heath, you know?
Yeah.
Like in all the nice places that make you feel like, oh God, I live in London.
Yes.
So yeah, I felt like changing it up, and I felt like I wanted my own space. And I didn't think it would happen with like a 1-bedroom. I thought it would be like a studio.
Yeah.
And then I looked at so many over so many months, and nothing ever worked out. And there was this one studio that I fell in love with, but I couldn't say yes. I felt like it was such a big decision to just say yes to a place. And also a place that is in a whole different part of town. I felt like I was betraying East London. But no, so I looked at that place, I fell in love, and then when I finally had the courage to say yes, which was not even 24 hours later, it was gone. And I was so sad, and I had a really great letting agent, and my budget changed. He was like, I've got this place, and I feel like you're going to love it, because it's got character, and it's going to be everything that you wanted in one place, and it's a 1-bedroom. I'm like, I went to see it the next day, and it was perfect. I immediately fell in love. I knew I needed to have it, and I said yes. Not on the spot. I had to go to Costa, get myself a hot chocolate first. After I had the hot chocolate, you know, the world was great again. I said yes, and I moved in 2 weeks later.
What were your criteria?
I wanted a washing machine. It doesn't have to be in the flat, but like in the building. I wanted an oven. I'm not very passionate about cooking necessarily, but a lot of the flats that you look at, they've got like these tiny, they're not even ovens, they're microwaves and grills rather, and they've got plates on top, and they call that a kitchenette, you know, and it doesn't feel like a kitchen to me.
No, definitely.
And the rare occasions that I do make my own food, I like to do like pasta bakes or potato bakes, so I need an oven, you know, and I wanted it to have character. I didn't want to move into like a random place that doesn't feel like home. I needed it to have character, and there wasn't specific criteria. I just felt like if I go there and if I see it, it needs to make sense to me. And also because I do everything on my own, I wanted to have everything nearby that I could need. So yeah, I think that was the criteria, which is kind of luxury for London standards, to have it all in one place.
Yeah, that's the thing about London. You always have to choose.
Right. Priorities.
Completely. You can't have everything. And what makes you very proud of yourself with these projects?
Just that I got it done without anyone helping me. I mean, I could have asked for help. I should have. I'm very bad at doing that. I don't really ask for help that much, if at all.
Really?
Yeah.
How come?
I feel like a burden, if that makes sense. So I'd rather not ask and just do everything on my own. And also when you do it on your own, you know that you're doing it right, which is a really, really, really bad mindset, but
I'm the same.
You're doing it your way.
Exactly. You control everything.
Exactly. No, it is that sense of control that you need. So just having everything organised myself, paid for myself, and I know that, you know, it's not done yet. There's still pieces that I need for the flat. I still haven't unpacked everything. It still doesn't look the way I want it to look, but I know it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
And I can do whatever I want, and if it looks shit, then it looks shit, you know, but that's down to me.
Yeah. And you can always change it.
Exactly. But I've had 2 people over so far. My dad came by and my best friend, and they loved it. So I think that's good signs already.
Yeah, definitely. If people who love you love it.
Exactly. And apparently the flat is very me, just in the way it is.
And how long did it take from the moment you first thought about it and the moment you started to actually do something about it?
I thought about it for a very long time, but I would say I would differentiate it between thinking about it and thinking about it with intention. Because the intent behind it too, okay, let's actually do this for real this time and not just fuck around, came in the springtime maybe. And then it was just a matter of finding a place where I would feel like home. And that took a bit of time. So yeah, maybe overall like 3-4 months.
Once you actually started to look in flats and etc., what was the main challenge you faced?
I think I felt so comfortable where I was, and I was thinking, do I really need this? Do I really need my own space? I really wanted my own space, but it was more a question of, do I really need it? And that's something I like to do a lot, just question myself, you know, does that really make sense? Do you really need it? And at some point I was like, you know what, you deserve this. You deserve to have your own space, no matter what it costs, you know.
Completely.
Yeah, I think I was just too comfortable, and also I didn't want to upset anyone. I didn't want to upset my flatmate, you know.
Oh, yeah?
So actually telling her, I've got this place, I can have it, I'm going to leave a reference letter for you. That was such an uncomfortable conversation. And for her, it was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But for me, it was terrible. I was so terrified.
Why?
Because we kind of had our own kind of relationship for 2 years, and to suddenly rock the boat, that just felt a bit weird to me.
And how did you actually do it? Like, what steps did you have?
Looking for a flat, looking at flats, finding the right one, signing the contract, which is very scary in itself, and then organising the move. I used a startup called Bark, where they source stuff for you that you need done. So I got a very nice Italian man with a van, basically, that helped me move. And then just boxing everything up. I tried to really use that time to sort out stuff as well, because I'm a bit of a hoarder. So I wanted to get rid of some things, didn't get rid of enough. And then I think I got like 85% of my stuff in the van. I knew I was going to stay in my old place for a bit longer because of Wi-Fi and, you know, working from home and all that fun stuff. And then I think I spent like a week or two just going back and forth with stuff. I would never ever do that again. Next time I'm going to move, I'm literally going to pay, no matter how much money, for professionals to just do everything. Because that will make your life so much easier than doing anything by yourself. And also bless the Uber driver who took me on my last trip. So I did everything with the tube, which I cannot recommend. I did like a trip a day after work for like 2 weeks. And then on the last day, I just took all the last bits and stuff and like my chair and all of that. I looked ridiculous. I ordered an Uber and the Uber driver picked me up and he's like, that's a lot of stuff you've got with you. I don't know if it's going to fit. I'm like, mate, it's going to fit. We're going to make this work. And then I moved in and I just, unpacked everything slowly. Usually I'm the one person that says when I get home I need to unpack immediately, because if you're not going to do it immediately, you're never going to do it. But I was so exhausted with uni, assignments, work, that I just did it gradually. So that's why we're still in the situation of I've got one bag left to unpack. From the moment that I got my keys, I also started buying stuff to make it like the vision that I had in my mind. It still doesn't look like that vision yet. So there's still some bits and pieces that I need to change, I need to buy. But I also want to be quite hands-on. For example, with the coffee table that I'm still missing, I want to buy something used and pre-loved and just make it mine. So if I'm going to paint it in like a funny colour, that's going to be great, that's going to be fun.
Oh, yes.
And then just, I don't know, be creative with it and make it like a really nice space. So there's quite a lot of steps in the whole process, I think. And again, we're still not done. I'm not happy just yet, but
also it hasn't been that long actually when you think about it.
No, almost 2 months.
That's tough.
Exactly. I mean, to be fair, I was gone for 2 weeks of that.
Yeah.
Know?
So it's like a month.
Exactly.
It's not that long. Was there something easier than you thought it would be? Like, was there something you thought would be quite challenging and actually when doing it, it was quite easy?
I stressed a lot about, once I'm going to get there and like all my stuff is in there, how I'm going to make it work, that it kind of looks nice and that it kind of feels like home. To now, like to this day, it still doesn't necessarily feel like home when I open the door. It feels like a nice place where I feel comfortable. But there's such a massive difference between now and when I like first moved in. What I thought would be really hard is just to make it all look nice with what I have. It was actually quite easy because nobody's going to care what it's going to look like because I have to care.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of that realization that fuck how it's going to look like, as long as I'm happy, that's all that matters. So yeah, I think it was just that, you know, making it work with what you've got, that was way easier than I anticipated. Because I actually do own nice things.
Yeah.
And they do work together. But because I never really had enough space or my own space, I never really had the chance to put it in a way that makes sense. So now all these like frames and little articles and like decor stuff and like all of that just works so well together. And when I see it in the morning, it's still not in its right place yet, but like when I see it in the morning when I wake up, it looks great.
Was there at some point, because you said earlier that you didn't ask for help for anything, is there a moment that you regretted not asking for help?
All the time.
Fair enough.
All the time. It was just the packing. There was so much to pack. Because I have a lot of my stuff with me, you know, I'm 21 years and there's a lot, and also I'm a hoarder, so yeah. I also have a lot. So there was a lot to pack. As I said, you know, working full time, uni in the evenings, and then it was assignment time as well. So there wasn't much time. So yeah, just the packing and getting it all from one place to the other. It was just so stressful. Like, I wish I would have had help, but I also could have asked, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I did have somebody move most of my stuff, but like,
Yes.
I paid them. It was still stressful.
Was there anyone who had an impact on that? Like, who either made you want to move or made you want to do that more quickly, or helped you make it quicker?
I've got a friend. She's about 12 years older than me. And she's got her own place. It's a really big, nice flat by the Thames. And she just loves her home so much. And she's always like raving on about it, like how peaceful it is for her to have her own place and to just not be bothered with anyone's opinions of where things have to be. And like all these little things that make you feel nice and make you feel at home and whatever. And that was something I was struggling with in the old place where, yes, I lived there, but it was essentially somebody else's house I was living in. There weren't my pictures on the wall and all of these things. So I think just her and like how happy she was and how content she is currently with her life. And because a big part of it is that she's got her own place and that she doesn't have to be bothered with anyone.
Yeah.
I was like, I want that. And she was very encouraging with everything. She said, whenever something, you know, the littlest thing happened with a flatmate, she was like, just get your own place. And then, yeah, so I'd say she kind of made an impact. She hasn't been by to see the flat yet, but I'm sure that will happen at some point.
I don't think I have any other question for you. Is there something else you want to talk about?
I felt like it's like such an everyday thing, but then...
Well, moving is a very important part.
Right? But people do it all the time.
Well, actually, no.
No?
I don't think so. I think London is quite particular in that sense as well, because the housing situation in London...
It's ridiculous.
It's like you pay hundreds of pounds per month for such little spaces. So I think London is a very particular space for that. But apart from that, I don't think people move all the time. And moving, every time I moved, like I've moved because I studied in different places, in different cities, in different countries. I had to move, but every time I felt that it is quite a big deal because eventually it is the place you live. It has to be your nest, your personal space. If there is one space where you have to feel comfortable, it is your flat. It's such an important part of your life. I think I realised that actually quite late. But yeah, it is so important.
Yeah.
So I think, no, it is a good and important project to talk about.
We need to talk about the everyday things, right?
Yeah.
I often feel what I do is very ordinary, boring, you know. It's not really special. And I always find people so fascinating. And then sometimes that realisation sets in that if I find other people fascinating, I would just be as fascinating.
Definitely.
And I do have stories for like every situation, you know.
Yeah, as you do.
Right? Because at the end of the day, my life is not that boring, but it's just when you're put on the spot, you feel like it is.
Cool. Well, we're reaching the end. Thank you so much for talking to me.
Sure.
For accepting to participate in this podcast. I think it was very inspiring. Now I definitely want to move. And as the guests, you have the very last word or sentence of the podcast. So the microphone is yours.
I'm just going to quote somebody. So I know you're not into reality TV.
I'm not. It's fine.
So I'm just going to quote Heidi Klum in the show Project Runway, where at the end, whenever a candidate leaves, she just says, "Auf Wiedersehen."